following your bliss, like we talked about, that presupposes the idea that what you're doing is not harmful to others. I mean, obviously, if you're a mass axe murderer, you know, and that's your bliss, then we're not talking about that kind of stuff. But, you know, we're talking about somebody who, you know, loves to teach kids volleyball or make violins or play the harmonica or sail to Mexico or whatever it is. I mean, I think that if a person can get in touch with that, and sometimes that's difficult, getting in touch with that. If one can get in touch with that, they can really then go to that place where they follow their bliss to some degree or another and have an amazing life, And I think, you know, one of the things we talked about earlier before we turned the camera on was, you know, Wayne always said, you know, don't die with your music still inside of you. And when you feel something that you have to express, do it, get it out there, you know, express it. I believe, and there are philosophies that believe that each of us is absolutely, totally unique in the world. We all pretty much agree with that. And that each of us has a special, unique gift to offer the planet, the world, you know, the cosmos, each other, whatever it is. And that's what we're here to bring forth. And I think the idea of following your bliss can help us get in touch with what is it that makes me unique in all of millennia that I've been created to bring to this experience and to share with people. To me, that is an amazing revelation, or it's a very worthwhile pursuit to try and find that. And you know, some people find it when they're 6, and some people find it when they're 66. So what?
You know, there are some interesting little tests a person can do with themselves. They can write down when they were having the most fun, and go back over the years when they were having the most fun and how much they enjoyed it, why they enjoyed it, and then tie those things together and find out what they were in common.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Right.
Then you can go back over the years again and find out what happened when you felt the best.
Right.
And do the same thing. What made you really feel confident and good? And do the same thing and bring that about again. What happened? What did you have in common? A lot of people find a great deal about themselves they didn't know just doing little things like that.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about, you know, getting in touch with what feels right for you. You know.
Yeah.
We talked about that. What feels right for you, irrespective of what you've been conditioned to believe is right for you. You know, and that's a challenge. What feels right, you know, for me. And I believe that everybody has that voice if they can just get in touch with that voice. And that's probably the big challenge is how do you get in touch with that voice?
Right.
You know? Right. And that takes practice. And it's interesting because I think there was a Dr. Oz show one time on health, just overall health, and they had 3 aspects. They had a lady there with some you know, organic stuff, and then they had Dr. Mercola there with his alternative health kind of things. They had Deepak Chopra, and they all spoke for like 4 or 5 minutes, and then they recapped. And then to do the recap, Deepak's you know, takeaway from that, they panned over to Deepak, and he had a little round table and a little candle, lit in there, and he said, meditation. He said, that's the whole takeaway for me is meditation. If you can just learn to meditate even 10 or 15 minutes a day, then, and I think that's, in terms of circling around this conversation, that's what can bring you to finding out what feels right for you, you know, what you really want in your life, what feels good, and where you maybe really want to go, you know. What's the challenge, or how can somebody get past the conditioning and get to how do they even get to the place where they know what feels right for them? And I think meditation, you know, it doesn't have to be sitting in a candle, cross-legged with a big pillow. It can be sitting in your car, you know, at the parking lot with a seat back, you know, and just closing your eyes or going to the beach or anything like that. But I think, you know, 5, 10, 15 minutes a day of just peace, you know, and quiet.
Peace, gratitude is so important too. If you make a list about what you're grateful for,
right,
and don't confine it to now. Go back, And of course, you can do this every day afresh.
Right.
Keep your mind straight and open. But you'll find your bliss and your beauty and what you love within your gratitude.
Sure.
As well.
Sure.
There's a lot of ways.
Right.
A lot of ways to find it.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit about the idea that, you know, you're not going to I think you mentioned about if it would be great if young people could figure that out or see that soon. It'd be easy because then they wouldn't have to. They could grow into life and not find it later where they were saddled with a bunch of responsibilities
right.
for other people.
Right.
And I think that, you know, the concept is, and Wayne said one time in one of his conversations, you know, I'm not saying that you're going to just all of a sudden abandon your responsibilities. You know, you're not going to quit your job. You're not going to stop paying your bills. You're not going to, you know, quit supporting your kids. But he said, if you can begin to get to what makes you feel good, then things will happen for you, and you will maybe find a way to make that transition in your life.
Right.
You know, and even if you don't make a complete transition, maybe you'll at least develop a way to exercise part of that. You know, right. I mean, hey, you can be an attorney, and you can be a potter at the same time, right?
Right.
You know?
How many people have a full-time job, and when they have a little time, they pick up their brush and go off in the woods and paint?
Right.
Or they go with their band and play music.
Right.
Or they go and they dance.
Right.
Or they go and they write.
Sure.
The irony is that most of us have a creativity inside of us that we're good at.
Sure.
And we haven't developed that creativity enough that we can turn it into a vocation yet.
Right, right.
But we would do it even if we didn't get paid because we love it. And that's the point.
Right, exactly.
That is the point.
Right.
Wayne Dyer loved to write and
Right.
share the wisdom that he had so much. He was willing to quit his job and go on the road
Right.
and wing it until he made it.
Right.
And fortunately, he could.
Right.
And he did.
Right.
We all have things we love so much we'll do it even if we weren't getting paid.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
people say, well, why would you do that? You're not getting paid.
Right.
You're getting something more out of it than money.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting joy out of it.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I write this piece for the Mazatlan Messenger, right? And my column goes in twice a month, Maureen. And if you ever see this. And yeah, it does go in twice a month, late sometimes. But I mean, I don't get paid very much for doing that, you know.
Right.
I mean, it's very, very little. It's
right.
You know, pardon me, it's almost like not getting paid.
Yes.
But I love to do it, and I love the interaction, and it's fun to put it out there, and it's part of me, you know, following my bliss, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, following my bliss. I mean, I'm in San Diego, and I have my boat. I'm on my way to Mexico to get in the sailing charter business, and I'm with some friends. We go hear Wayne Dyer speak to a small group of people. This was a long time ago when he would speak to 200 people. And you know, after one of these people I was with, these friends, was a former neighbor of his in Long Island, and so he recognized her. They hugged. It was great. He was happy, and then we chit-chatted with Wayne, and I, you know, was in the conversation, and I told him, hey, I've been following you since the first book, and I mentioned to him a few of the things that I was familiar with, and he was like, wow, you really have been following me, you know. And I said, well, yeah. And I told him, I said, I'm here in San Diego, and I'm on my way to Mexico with a sailboat that I bought and fixed up to get in the sailing charter business. And I went out of the real estate brokerage business, and I just felt like I had to do this. And he was thrilled, and you know, he just lit up, and it was like, wow, that is so great. I'm really anxious to know what happens. And that's when I asked him if he knew Jimmy Buffett. You know, I said, do you know Jimmy Buffett? And he's like, no, who's Jimmy Buffett? I said, well, he lives right near you, and he's a philosopher, and which he is. And I think, you know, Jimmy Buffett, one of his songs that comes to mind right away, the title is "I Love the Now," you know, and that's very, very new age and very philosophical, and it's very Wayne Dyer-ish, right? But Wayne hadn't heard of Jimmy Buffett, and I kind of was surprised. You know, well, okay, he's, yeah, I think I mentioned in my piece, in retrospect, of course, you know, why wouldn't Wayne know Jimmy Buffett in Margaritaville? He's right down the road from him. But of course, Wayne, meanwhile, he's busy in the process of writing 32 international bestsellers, you know? So he may not have time for Jimmy Buffett songs.
Right.
But yeah, so I had the book, I had purchased the book that was in the back room that he had recently written, And he saw it, and he said, "Give me that book." And he took the book, and he wrote his home address and his home phone number in that book. And he said, "Let me know how it goes. I'm really excited about this. I want you to tell me how it goes with this adventure you're on." He said, "This is so great." And I thought, wow, Wayne Dyer wants to hear from me, That was pretty cool. And because I was, quote, following my bliss.
Right.
And I never did get back to him. The book disappeared with one of my crewmate that went to Mexico with me who couldn't handle it and, went away on Mexicana Airlines, and the book, I think, went with her. I never did find it again. Unfortunately, I really would have loved to have written to Wayne, and who knows, maybe we'd be buddies, But it's fascinating that all came around and that looped around in terms of me feeling like I had to do that.
Right.
And like I said, I don't think maybe I did it in the most responsible way. I had a real estate brokerage, and I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. The voice inside of me just every day kept telling me, "You've got to quit this, you've got to stop this." And I mean, literally, it was killing me physically. I mean, every day I'd go to the office and put the key in the door, if I happened to be the first one there, which wasn't often towards the end. And it was just excruciating to do that. It was just painful to do that. And so without as much grace as I could have mustered, I let that go, and I let it fall into, I let other people take that over. And I found a way to buy this boat and go to Mexico. And I like I said, I probably could have done it much more responsibly in several ways. But that's what I did, The voice just was like, so.
Sometimes life comes along and taps us on the shoulder and says, "Hey, you're going to follow your bliss whether you want to or not, because the bottom's falling out of your life." So take it, take the responsibility, take the joy, take the pain, take the freedom, take everything it offers you and go for it.
Well, and that's a great point, because, when I began to feel little pangs of guilt about how I handled certain things, I realized that had I stayed in that situation, I would have probably long be dead by now, like a lot of my counterparts are, those peers at that time. And I looked around one day. I was having coffee at my favorite little coffee shop, and I was young in the business, and I looked around and I saw all of these people had been doing what I had been doing for 30 years.
Right.
And all these guys, over there, and they were overweight and loud and unhappy, and most of them were alcoholics. Coffee shop in the morning and the bar at night for 3 hours. And I looked at there and I realized that's where I'm going. Right. That's the path I'm on, And I certainly I would have been a much less agreeable person had I stayed there. I probably would have been much less kind to my kids and everybody I loved. So I think doing what I did has brought me around to the place where I can really be genuine, and I can be honest about who I am, and I can be very kind. I very much appreciate my family, my kids and their family and that kind of stuff. And who knows what would happen had I become a bitter old man.
A lot of people become unconsciously bitter because they're literally strapped down to the needs of everything and everybody, and they're the only thing in their life they don't have any time for.
Right.
And they become angry and resentful, and they don't know why they are. They're just hard to get along with.
Right,
but there's no time for them. And the idiom about it is this. You can even watch them go into any kind of social environment, including their home, and if anybody needs something, they're expected to drop whatever they're getting and get it for them.
Right.
And it's worse in their home than it is out in public, but it's constant because they've fallen into a role of basically diapering and burping every existing person around them because that's their job.
Yeah.
And no wonder they're not happy.
Right.
Their life is full and no room for them.
Right. Yeah, I agree, and I know that happens a lot. But I also think there are some folks out there who are in a place where they're caregiving for somebody in their family or whatever, and that makes them very happy, and they really like that. So the trick, of course, is, I guess, what.
It isn't what you do; it's how you feel about what you do.
Right.
And if it feels wrong, it probably is.
Right. Exactly.
It's one thing to help somebody that's helpless and have a good feeling about it.
Right.
To help somebody that can't help themselves is rewarding in itself.
Right.
To help somebody that won't help themselves
Right.
is draining in and of itself.
Oh yeah. Right.
And you could say it's the same action, but it's not.
Right.
Because the result's different.
Oh,
It's an energy investment into something.
Yeah.
Where's the energy going? Are you being used? Or are you really helping?
Right.
Are you contributing to enablement?
Yeah.
Are you enabling somebody to continue to be helpless and irresponsible because you're doing it for them? That's depleting.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, whether you know it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Are you helping somebody that's maybe going to change the world tomorrow? That's invigorating.
Right.
And yet you can say it's the same act, but it's not.
Right. Oh yeah, no, I agree. And also, I think that in my experience, the happiest people and the most well-adjusted people are the people who have taken time for themselves and continue to take time for themselves in some fashion.
Yes.
You know, they've in their lives they've figured out how to, you know, follow that little voice to give them some kind of personal identity and satisfaction with what they do.
And reflection on,
Right.
We're energetic beings. You know, now we have email. That's energy mail.
Yeah.
You know, we went from agriculture to industrial. Now we're going into the energy phase. Everything's energy.
Yeah.
And it is energy. If you give your energy, and you do,
Right.
pay attention to where you're giving it, because where you're giving it is going to grow.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to grow.
Right.
And following your bliss, every one of us has something that brings us joy. Like
Right.
I say, if you're going to help a kid that you can see is going to be able to be strong enough and have character quality enough that if this kid had a chance, they're an asset to the world.
Right.
That's a great feeling.
Right.
On the other hand, if you're dragging him out of his 5th drug addiction, you don't feel so good about it.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think, you know, the whole idea too about, I mean, and it occurs to me because I'm reflecting on a conversation I had last night, and part of following your bliss, which is, you know, in other words, for getting in touch with what you want and then maybe doing something about it. You know, I was talking to this person last night, and we were talking about energy, and you talked about energy, and what I believe is that there's an energy that if you listen to, if you will, or feel, the energy actually does as much as we do. We create an energy based on our persona and who we are, you know, and our electrical being and our spiritual, soulful being. But you know, two people come to the table, and energy is created.
Yes.
That's different and greater than the two of them.
Right.
And if you can just be okay with what the energy does and not necessarily what you have to do, the energy will do what's right.
And it's motivating.
Yeah.
When it grows of something positive beyond both of whom you are,
Right.
you go away feeling motivated. That's what Wayne Dyer did.
Sure.
That is what he did.
Right.
He left you with a bigger, better energy.
Right. You feel good.
Very.
Somehow, some way.
Very. Somehow he awakened the energy that
Right.
was more positive,
Right.
and you'd say to yourself, "Self, I'm going to do something
Right.
positive with
Right.
this, and I can."
Yeah, and it's not necessarily about the expectation or the projection or knowing ahead of time what it is. It's about being open to what it is. The same way you try to listen to what it is for you, you listen to what the energy does in a scenario, and it'll unfold and it'll help you with what makes sense. And if you can go away, I think if you can go away from any interaction with another individual or a group of people and feel enlivened, then that is amazing. That is fabulous. That means you're beginning to get it.
And that's the sort of thing we should think more about and do more about.
Right.
And participate more in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So following our bliss, it's really, we've boiled it down into something quite simple now, and that is to find that thing which brings you joy and enthusiasm. And a lot of people really love learning. I'm one of them.
Sure.
And I like that quiet time where I can read and study and reflect and meditate and learn, etc.
Right.
And I need it.
Right.
It's more important than food almost. I need
Sure.
that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But each one of us needs something that gives us that inner inspiration that the flower in us can bloom.
Right.
And we really if we can grasp on that more and more and more often, as we do, our success and our joy gets closer.
Right.
And that sounds silly, but it really does.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It really does.
Well, and I think, Joseph Campbell, who's, I think originally coined the "Follow Your Bliss" line, he said one of his messages is, if you follow your bliss, then doors will open for you that you never knew even existed. And I think if you can just trust in that, just to start with, just trust that, right, and believe that, and see how that goes, and that's absolutely true. Because the universe will cooperate with you if you fully, completely are in line with your uniqueness.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not fully in line with it, it doesn't cooperate with you, and to varying degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, when you left to go to Mexico and took your boat down there, you were facing a whole lot of brand new situations you'd never done before. Yet you were determined that you were going to do this.
Yeah, I was determined. Well, again, the voice was, had me throttled, literally, and it was, I had to do it. And it's interesting because, we talk about follow your bliss, and sometimes it just sounds so blissful, right?
Right.
Right. Like it's just, you're rowing down a little, mountain lake or whatever, and it's, everything is just serene and peaceful. But it's interesting because in my following my bliss, I bought this boat, I repaired it, I got to Mexico through trial and tribulation and breaking down on the way, and just a lot of grief with the crew person I had, who just went berserk over the whole thing, and there were scary situations. So getting there was scary. I put us in harm's way. I didn't want to, but I did. And being in Mexico, here I am with this boat, and I get to but I want this, I want it. It's like I'm following my bliss. And some might say to a point of absurdity, and I thought that a few times. But so I have this boat, and my partner says, yeah, go work, everything's fine, we've got to deal with the captain of the port or the assistant or something. I make these little funky flyers, I walk around the beach, I go to happy hours, and I did not ever, I was never a person at that point that would approach anybody. I just didn't do that, and I had to go out, and I had to find people to pay me money to go sailing, because I had to eat, because I bought this boat, and all the money I had was put into repairing it, and getting there, and then more repairs on the way that I didn't know about, or so I was challenged, so here I am, not a guy not wanting to go talk to somebody cold turkey, and having my little flyer, and just segueing into conversations with people to see if they wanted to go sailing, and pay me $30 a piece. And that part was terrifying to me, But I did it, and then in a couple of weeks I was like an expert at it. But it was hard. It was difficult. Money was tight, and I was foraging, and my friend Roberto was helping me, and none of us had any money. And then we started getting customers, and it got a little bit better. And there were a couple of times when I would have people on the boat, and it was just like absolutely thrilling, just thrilling. So, it's like sailing, or it's like flying. The old adage about flying. When you're a private pilot, it's the 95% boredom and 5% sheer terror. Well, the whole thing with me, with following my bliss, was it was all this struggle and all this grief, and yet there was 5% of that in little slices that was just absolute magic that I could have never ever experienced any other way, no question. So I remember one time having 12 people on the boat, and they'd all paid me money to be out on this beautiful day on my sailboat, sailing off towards the island, and anchoring and swimming and drinking beer, and I remember being on the boat with my feet up and had my hand on the wheel and catching the breeze going back to the harbor, and it was just absolutely magical. And everybody on the boat was just mesmerized. They were just like, and they were loud, and they were drinking and everything. But we got to this one point, and the boat was sailing, and everybody was quiet, and it was just magic. And here I was, the captain of my fate, so to speak. And because of following my bliss and not having it be easy, I had these magical moments. And I think that's I think that's an interesting observation, because I mean, we're not talking about follow your bliss and, like I said, have it be like everything is rosy, you know, because following your bliss can be difficult. I mean, Nelson Mandela followed his bliss, you know, when he spent 25 years in prison, right? So, you know, the concept isn't, you know, follow your bliss and everything, you know, and it's all going to be sunshine and roses. I think following your bliss is that you're going to get this personal growth and satisfaction in what you spend your time doing, you know.
It's like climbing a mountain. It's hard work, but oh, what an inspiration when you reach the top.
Right, exactly.
The view.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Everything we dedicate ourselves to requires challenges to overcome. And if it didn't, we wouldn't have that great feeling when we had finally overcome them.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. And sometimes it's hard to live that way, but it's true. And I think Neil Donald Walsh, in his book Conversations with God, I love one of his quotes, and he says, "Life begins beyond your comfort zone." You know, and I think it's life, but it's something like that. But when you think about that, you know, and there's a saying that all success happens beyond your comfort zone. And so, I mean, if you're going to follow like we talked about it, I mean, if you're trying to break out of whatever constraints you have, and you're trying to follow your bliss, you've got to break out of your comfort zone.
You have to dare.
Yeah.
You have to dare to take that step beyond where you've already been.
Right. And it can be, and it's funny because in some ways that can almost be addictive, because you can be in a place where it's like, yeah, man, I'm right outside of my comfort zone. I wonder what's going to happen next. But that's a great place to be. Not that you're, you know, going to bungee jump with an old bungee cord or something like that, or you know, but the fact that you're exploring and you're on this personal adventure of some kind where you know you're just outside of your comfort zone, and you know that always leads to personal growth.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's a thrilling life.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. And I think anybody who wants to figure out, like, wow, what do I do next, and how can I go? I mean, it could be something as simple as taking dance lessons to get out of your comfort zone, right?
Right.
Yeah. For a lot of people, it's way out of their comfort zone.
The little things that intimidate you, you realize that it's you that's standing in your way.
Right.
You're the only one that really is.
Yeah, exactly.
And be realistic and realize, hey, I don't know how to do this, but hey, neither did anybody else when they started. We all started at the same place.
Exactly, right, exactly,
so, yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, so if you've got this thing about follow your bliss, and it happens to be, you know, I want to learn how to paint or be a sculptor or play the guitar or whatever it is, I mean, you know, obviously it's not like you expect to go pick up a guitar and play, you know, a masterful, wonderful piece. You know, you've got to start somewhere.
You don't think you can play Chopin in the first 3 minutes.
Yeah, right, yeah. But I mean, obviously the journey is part of it. Yeah.
And the pleasure, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the journey is gracious and joyous.
Yeah, Camus said the journey is better than the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.